what ultimately happened as far as the goal of reaching the border, getting in, bringing supplies in? What happened?
Well, after about, 3 days or so of running around doing demonstrations, there were different affinity groups. So like there was a student group and there was a women's group and an interfaith group, right? So the women's group had been making requests to see Mrs. Mubarak, the president's wife. And they finally were granted an audience with her. And so under her direction of the Red Crescent organization, she granted permission for 100 marchers to go to Gaza by bus. And so suddenly, this decision from her was made around 11 o'clock at night. And next thing you know, my phone's going off that this decision has been made. 100 people can go. So the Gaza Freedom March organizers are trying to put together a list of names of people who can go. And they wanted to do a sort of fair representation on the buses of the countries who were there. Okay? And so there were more Americans than other countries represented. So they selected more Americans. And our teammate, Michigan Peace Team teammate Yusuf, was selected. And the criteria, I guess, that the Gaza Freedom March organizers used was like you couldn't have been in Gaza in the last 4 years. They were giving priority to people who were Palestinian by birth who hadn't been allowed back, which was Yusuf's situation. And there were some other things, but we were thrilled that Yusuf was allowed to go. But we didn't get the email that he was on the list until about 2 in the morning, and they have to be at the bus at 7. So, we're knocking on his hotel room door trying to get him awake and up and around and helping him get packed. And suddenly, there's all this elation among us as a team because at least one of us would get to go. I mean, we were sorely, sorely disappointed and grieving and sad that all of us couldn't go. I mean, when it really became real that they really weren't going to let us go, there was one team meeting one evening where really the 6 of us just sat and wept together because the mission was to enter Gaza, not to be running around Cairo, And so suddenly it changed our focus and uplifted our mood. So we're handing him, all of us, not all of us, but I know that I had money that I had collected from home specifically for families in Gaza. And Michigan Peace Team, I think Liz had some money. So we had little gifts and money that we were trying to hand off to Yusuf to carry in for us. Because if we couldn't go, he could go as our ambassador. He could be the witness for us of what was going on. And so we show up the next morning at 7 as the send-off for the 100 people to go. And that was a little interesting. But Yusuf went. And we haven't seen him. We saw him for one day when he got back. And he just had fantastic stories to tell. And there wasn't even time to hear all of his stories and to see his pictures of what he, saw while he was there. But at least one of us got in, So it didn't feel, we kind of were struggling with feelings of failure. Like we came to do this and instead we did this. But it was interesting to find that a lot of the Egyptian people, like the local people, the regular folk, have a heart for the Gaza people as much as we do. And, some of the local Egyptians were really taking a personal risk to demonstrate with us because the Egyptian police are a lot harder on their local folk than they were on the internationals. And several of the local Egyptians who were siding with us were viciously beaten and harassed, and a couple of them were arrested. So they were taking a chance to join with us, but it was helpful for us and encouraging for us to know that we weren't here in this country taking a stand for human rights and peace alone. that the local people felt the same way, and so they would see us in restaurants or walking down the street, and they would give us a thumbs up, and they would say, Viva Gaza, or they'd hold up a peace sign to us, or they'd shake our hand and say, welcome, we're glad you're here, we agree with you, as best they could. And that, it's like if we did nothing else except raise awareness, for this number of people from this number of countries, to raise awareness that we're not going away, that we believe in the importance of human rights, we believe in having the borders open, we're going to take a stand for this and we're not going away, then we accomplished something. At one point, the press were out. There was like a whole contingent of press, and the Cairo newspapers at one point called us hooligans in an article, troublemakers, but hey, it got us in the paper and people were taking notice and wondering what we were about. So that's good. That's what we needed to do. And the really frustrating thing was, though, it's like the day after we all got home, they opened the Rafah border and that was like the day then the convoy was let in, and but they couldn't let us in. The day we leave, they opened the border. So, it was just a game. I swear it was a game.